guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Laura.
And I'm Brittany, and this is Thursday. Happy Thursday, guys. You've made it almost through the week. This is our Ask Uncut Day. It is where you write in your questions, your biggest problems, your littlest problems, your very questionable problems, and we try our best to answer them. We're not overly qualified, but one thing we are is very passionate.
I would say that we're not qualified at all, but we have a lot of enthusiasm and we've lived and seen a lot of things in our lifetime, and all of our heartfelt advice comes from life experience. Lots of it. But anyway, one thing I know you didn't do last night, Brittany, and I say last night because we're recording this on Wednesday, guys, so don't worry. I did it on the right night.
Sex?
Did you have sex last night?
No, I didn't.
What, is this like the first time since you've been over there that you haven't had sex? Brittany on her sex marathon around the world.
Look, it's probably the only exercise I've been doing actually since I've been here.
Meant to be very, very good for you. Sexercise. I wouldn't know.
Sexercise.
But apparently it's a good way to get some cardio in there.
Sex aerobics. What didn't you do last night?
Last night, so Tuesday night, I did the census. And let's all be real. If you sat down and did the census for your household, it took a lot of time and it didn't make a whole lot of census. Drum roll, please.
Oh, that was one of your finest puns. I'll take that. So you've done the census. I didn't even know that there was a census. Is that bad on my behalf?
Yeah, look, I'm actually fearful of saying that I didn't even know that we were supposed to do a census for the fear of sounding like an absolute idiot. But I got a phone call from my sister at 10 p.m. last night saying, hey, have you done the census? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I didn't even know that this was a thing we were supposed to do this year. No, apparently it had been well advertised across free-to-air TV, but this is another query and quandary of the modern era, and that is that so many people don't actually watch free-to-air TV anymore. So I hadn't seen it on the news. I mean, I'd been watching the news. To be honest, I've been kind of giving the news a bit of a wide berth for the last week and a half. I'm so fucking sick of COVID updates and hearing what's happening. So I've just been getting like the top line COVID restrictions each day, and I've been kind of avoiding the news. And then, I had no idea. But one thing that is absolutely certain, the person who doesn't check their mail for like 2 months at a time, which is me and Matt, should not be doing a census. Australia shouldn't care what we have to say about anything.
No, and to be honest, like I check my mail once in a blue moon, and half the time I don't even go through it properly because in my head I'm like, no one knows where I live, so I don't get anything important. So I probably have loads of government documents just sitting there waiting for my attention.
You're like, no one knows where I live except for the government. Yeah, so we did it last night, but there has been a lot of conversation online this morning about how problematic some areas of the census were. And predominantly, there was only options of being male, female, LGBTQI community completely disregarded, non-binary community completely disregarded. And on top of that, if you did select a non-binary option, you were just then allocated, which a lot of people don't know, you were just randomly allocated a sex at the end of the census, which completely goes against the whole premise of being non-binary in the first place.
So if you picked, so there was literally male or female, and was there a non-binary option at all or not?
I didn't see the non-binary option. Some people had said to me that there was a non-binary option, but then it allocated a gender at the end anyway. But I didn't see it. I don't think there was a non-binary option. And the crazy thing about this is like the census, their actual tagline for doing it is that every stat tells a story. Unless that stat is about your sexuality. However, if that stat is about how much housework you do every single week, they want to know. I don't know. I feel like the whole thing was very backwards. There is a lot more very modern information that could have been included in that census to be able to make well-educated decisions for the next 5 years, and they missed that opportunity completely.
So what were some of the questions that they asked for this census?
So some of the questions included things like how many hours a week work are you doing? What is like a shit that the ATO already knows for starters. Like the ATO already knows how much money I make, even though every time I seem to do my tax, they're like, are you sure you submitted everything? And I'm like, I don't know. You guys know. Why don't you just tell me how much tax I owe? And they're like, we can't do that, but we will fine you if you fuck it up.
Yeah, you're telling the story, guys.
So there was just a lot of questions around like your income, around like what the type of work you do, your tertiary education, who you live with, how many children you have, how much house and unpaid labor you do in your own home, a lot of those type of questions. And then also another very and highly triggering question, which I think a lot of people would have seen and been like, oh, this is a fucking poorly timed question to ask, is what transport did you use to get to work this week? And since most of us...
I walked from my fucking bedroom to the lounge room. I put my joggers on and walked 10 meters.
I used my feet. Thank you. I moved for a whole of 4 meters today from the couch to the fridge and back. So yeah, look, I mean, this is nothing new. There's been a lot of articles coming out this morning around how problematic this is. But I just think we're in 2021. There are no more excuses for why that has not been addressed or why that's not been included as an absolutely crucial and imperative part of the data and statistics in Australia. It blows my mind.
It's pretty bonkers, especially with all the conversations over the last, 12 to 18 months specifically. It's insane that they can put out a census now and not even have an option for non-binary.
Well, it makes me mad. And I know it makes a lot of other Australians out there mad as well. So yes, I'm at home, I've got no pants on and I'm mad. That's where we're at.
Do you want to know what I did last night while you've just made me think of this? I was like, what was I doing last night?
Not having sex.
No, I was not having sex either. I don't have TikTok, right? And for somehow I got deep into the TikTok world. I think I read a news article. I did. I read a news article about one of the highest paid and highest followed TikTokers in the world. He's number 2. He has, I think, 101 million followers on TikTok. His name is Cabane Lame. And he gained 15 million followers. Like he was getting 15 million followers every 2 weeks. So he grew astronomically. And I was so intrigued. I was like, why is this young kid so popular on TikTok? So I went onto TikTok because I feel like I'm too old for TikTok. I don't know how it works. I don't know why everyone follows people. I don't know what you have to do to be popular. I was like, there must be something amazing about this guy. I went onto his TikTok and I scrolled like a best of that he has. He doesn't speak. It's actually the funniest thing I've ever seen. He doesn't say a word. All he does is watch a video, a TikTok trend or something, and then he just films himself, his facial reaction to it. And he's growing 15 million followers every 2 weeks and he's earning millions of dollars a year. And Laura, why the fuck don't we have a YouTube that we can put our videos on and make millions of dollars a year? I'm like, how are these kids doing this? But at the start, I was so off it. I was like, I don't get it. Anyway, I got hooked real quick. I couldn't stop watching his videos. His facials are amazing. So if anyone wants to go and get lost on TikTok, that's my recommendation.
No, Brittany just started a TikTok account because she's like, I heard that people are growing in This is why Matt has one. Matt started a TikTok account. One day I came out and he was doing some weird dance move and I was like, oh dear God, brace yourself. Here we are.
Is Matt popular on TikTok?
I mean, Matt's Matt. Who knows? I haven't looked. I don't even know how many followers he has. He's popular in this household though. Oh guys, enough of that. Let's get into the questions for today. And I have one, Britt, for you, which actually came up on the Facebook group. And to be honest, it wasn't written into us. It was an anonymous post, came up on the Facebook group, but I had a lot of feelings about this. And so I wanted to unpack it on the podcast. Now, it was very 50-50 in the comments section, and a lot of the comments were getting pretty fiery in response. So this is the predicament, and I'm going to summarize it for you guys. The girl had written in, her boyfriend had broken up with her, and she was going through the throes of a pretty shitty breakup. Now, the reason why he'd broken up with her was this. So he had still been in contact with a friend from several years ago who he'd hooked up with and kind of dated on and off before they had gotten together. Now, this friend, she had a baby and she was in a relationship with somebody else. Recently, she had started sliding into his DMs and contacting him a bit more, and her boyfriend, so the person who had written this question, her boyfriend had come to her and said, hey, this girl from my past has been messaging me pretty inappropriately. She wants to hook up. I said no. But yeah, just wanted to let you know. And the person who wrote in the question has turned around and said, I want you to tell the girl, the friend who has been writing to you, I want you to tell her partner. I want you to tell her partner so that he knows what she's trying to do to our relationship, but also what she's doing to their relationship. And the boyfriend says, absolutely fucking no way. We are not getting involved there. Just like, let it go away. And the person who wrote in, she dug her heels in and she went behind her boyfriend's back and she wrote to the partner of the girl who'd been contacting her boyfriend. And she said, like, this is what your girlfriend has been doing. Things blew up there. It got back to the boyfriend, as in like the boyfriend of the girl, the anonymous poster, broke up with her. Now, There were lots of questions on the Facebook group around whether she had actually done anything wrong. So whether the girl from our Facebook group, the anonymous poster, was in the wrong by going behind her boyfriend's back and telling the other partner. Brittany, what are your thoughts? Because it made me really mad. I had a lot of feelings about this one.
Wow. Okay. First question is, what has happened to the woman with the baby and her partner, the one that was trying to cheat? Are they together or did they break up?
Absolutely no idea, and also completely irrelevant to the situation that's happened with the girl and her boyfriend.
Oh, yeah, I was just trying to get the goss. That was irrelevant.
She wants to know, like, did she really do anything wrong by going and telling him, or was her boyfriend's reaction breaking up with her an overreaction? And also, like, how the hell does she get over this breakup? But I think more so I want to know if, like, ethically, did she do the wrong thing by her boyfriend?
I think this is a really tricky one, and I think it's pretty situational. We actually get a lot of people write this question in, and I've been in these positions in the past. We have a lot of people say things like, should I be going and telling this person that their partner's cheating? And it's always really tricky. Morally, of course you want to go and do that. Of course you want to save the guy from, being with someone that doesn't love him, that's doing the wrong thing, that's trying to break up other relationships. But also there is an aspect where I feel like it's not necessarily your problem. And I think sometimes things are better left alone. But some people can't live with themselves knowing that they haven't gone and done the right thing and told someone that their partner is cheating on them. For this situation, it's really tricky because this poor girl that's been broken up with, she has not done the wrong thing by telling him. She may have done the wrong thing by going against her partner's wishes. I can see why he is mad for sure, but I cannot see why he's broken up with her. I think that is way too extreme. If the only thing she has done is get her back up about the fact that someone has come into their relationship as a homewrecker and tried to break them apart, she hasn't necessarily done the wrong thing by telling them, but she has pissed him off, obviously, by going behind his back. And I can see where he's coming from in that. I don't think he should have broken up with her. That makes me question if there is more going on in this relationship than maybe he has said, or if there are other problems in the relationship, because that is not a reason to end your relationship. What do you think?
Totally. And I spoke to Matt about this quite a bit because I was so mad for her. I was mad for her because it's one thing to involve yourself in somebody else's cheating drama. Like if you find out that your friends cheated on their partner and you want to go and talk to the person about it, that's a whole different kettle of fish because you're involving yourself in somebody else's relationship and in somebody else's drama. This is her actual relationship. This happened to her, and this was somebody who came into her home and tried to, get with her partner. And I completely agree that, if your partner has asked you not to do something, specifically said, please do not go and speak to him. Please do not betray my trust by doing that. I get why he would be mad. And when I spoke to Matt about this, Matt was like, yeah, I would be mad at you. He's like, I would be mad that you went behind my back and went and spoke to the other guy. He was like, but I wouldn't break up with you. We would just have a fight. We would have a fight and then we would move on. And the fight would be about the betrayal of the conversation there, that I asked you to do something and you didn't do what I asked you to, and you betrayed my trust. But the bigger issue here is that why is the boyfriend so hell-bent on protecting and preserving their relationship over his own relationship and over the needs and wants of his actual girlfriend? I just think there's so much more loaded into this. And I know that maybe there's a little bit of spite, maybe there's a bit of jealousy, maybe it wasn't just the initiative as in to go and tell the other partner. It didn't just come from her being like, I want to do the right thing. I want to save him from being cheated on. She was probably like, no, fuck you. You don't get to get away with this. And there was probably a little bit of spite loaded into that. But I also don't blame her. I think that that's a very natural and normal response to this sort of situation where when somebody tries to hook up with your boyfriend, you're going to be like, fuck you, you can't get away with that. That's such bad behavior and I'm mad.
What would you do in that situation? If Matt's ex had slid into his DMs, Matt came to you and said, this has happened, but I put it to bed and I won't talk to her anymore. What would you do? Would you go and contact that partner and try and ruin that relationship? Or would you just be grateful that he told you and get on with it?
I actually thought about this. No, I would not go and tell him. And I think it is because I do have a really high level of trust with Matt in our relationship. And if Matt said to me, this has happened and I'm never going to speak to her again, for me, that would be enough finality about the whole thing. That's the big question though. We don't know whether he has said he's not going to be in any contact with her anymore. We don't know whether they're still going to remain and keep some sort of friendship. And if he was saying, oh, you know, like it's not a big deal and trying to downplay it, but still wanted to keep a friendship with her, I can understand why that would make his girlfriend feel crazily insecure, and like that would kind of like up this need and the want to be able to do something about it, right? To go and reach out and be like wanting to stop this.
It's really hard without knowing all the ins and outs, but I feel like I don't want to say that this girl that has been broken up with has done the wrong thing, because she hasn't. But the reason that the partner is angry is that he came to her and was honest. He asked her not to do something and she wasn't honest with him and went behind his back to start this fire with the other relationship. So I think he's probably just felt a little bit betrayed, which is ridiculous, because the only person that's really been betrayed in this whole situation is this poor girl, the innocent girl in the relationship, and she seems like she's the only one that's paid for it, which fucking sucks. But I think that the more I think about it, there has to be more going on in this situation for him to throw away what sounded like a great long-term relationship over this situation. Now, I don't know what that is. My advice to this girl, I think if you really want to save the relationship, like he's broken up with you, if you really want to save it and you really want to be with him, I think you need to swallow a bit of a pill and apologize. Now, I'm not saying you've done anything wrong, but obviously your partner feels like you have. And this is what it's about. It's about what people feel in regards to a situation. And that's not necessarily how you would feel. There's no right and wrong with feelings, but feelings are there because they're specific to an individual. He feels betrayed. So you need to go and very calmly explain yourself. You need to say, I'm so sorry that I hurt your feelings. I can see now that I went about it the wrong way. But the way I was feeling at that time, I was feeling so emotional, so upset, so betrayed. And did I deal with it in the wrong way? Yes, absolutely. Do I regret it? Yes. Do I want to make this work with you? Yes. Can we sort of talk this out? I think it's really a matter of putting your feelings down, explaining it at a very calm base level. That's what I would do in this situation. You might not actually feel like you were in the wrong, but like I said, and I can't reiterate it enough, feelings are different for everyone, and your partner feels like he has been betrayed. So that would be my advice if you want to get this relationship back on track.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one, isn't it? Like, I don't like the idea of saying, even if you're not sorry, you should go and apologize for something. Like, I kind of hate that.
But you're not apologizing because you've done something wrong. You're saying, I'm sorry that I made you feel like that. That's what it's about. It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't think that you would react in this way. I didn't consider your feelings in that. This is what I did. I was so passionate about it because I was wronged in this situation. But I can understand. It's more about understanding each other in a relationship. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I get that. I do think like the biggest thing in a relationship when you have any fight is like you want to feel validated, not necessarily apologizing when you haven't or you don't feel like you're in the wrong. Like I don't think that you should say sorry for something when you're not sorry for your behavior, but you do need to validate and make your partner feel validated in why they're upset. And like he feels betrayed because he asked you to do something and you went behind his back and did it. So there is a level of betrayal there. Whether there's no point us sitting here and pointing fingers being like, you're right, you're wrong. It's completely unhelpful. And that was happening a lot in the comment section on Facebook. People were getting very emotional about this. But I think having conversation and validating that you understand why he is upset. But also in the flip side, you need to be validated as to why you were upset, because I would be so mad too. I would feel so betrayed, and I would feel like that person, the girl, didn't have any care or didn't have any consideration for my relationship at all, which clearly she didn't. And at the end of the day, she's the one who has done the wrong thing, and you're the one that is ultimately suffering for this. So I agree with you completely, Brittany. I think, and this has been the general consensus from everybody I've asked, it is not a break-upable offense. Like what you did is not worth being broken up with about. And so maybe there is a bigger picture happening here. Maybe there are other fractures or faults in your relationship that you weren't aware of, and he's using this as a crutch because he wants to get out of the relationship. Or maybe he danced in the grey with her and there was more going on there as well. Like we don't know. There's so many other facets to this that it could be, but I do not think the reason why you broke up is this and solely this, because that is a fucking huge overreaction if I ever have seen it. Let's get into question number 2.
Okay, so question number 2 actually ties in pretty nicely, I think, with this question. If a friend tells you something and says, please don't tell anyone, would you still tell your partner? Example, if Britt told Laura something and said, Laura, please don't tell anyone, would you still go and tell Matt?
Oh,
This is a good question, actually.
this is such a good question. Look, I think there are a couple of different areas of this that make it a bit grey. I tell Matt most things, right? Like he knows pretty much everything. Does that mean that I tell him every single thing about my friends? No. I do think that there has to be some privacy. If your friends tell you things that are private and they ask for secrecy around something, then I think that you owe that to them. Like that, you're showing your friend a level of respect by giving them that. I think it is dependent on two things though. One is like how close you are with that friendship, and also what are they asking you to keep a secret? Like that's a pretty important part of this. I mean, if it's something that's completely personal about them, like for example, Britt, if you were having a massive blow up with Jordan and you said to me, look, I don't want Matt to know, don't tell Matt, I wouldn't tell Matt about it because I wouldn't want Matt to have a skewed perception about what your relationship is like. You know, we haven't gotten the opportunity, because of Jordan's away, guys, like we haven't had the opportunity to spend lots of time together as like couple friends. So Matt doesn't really know Jordan. And I would hate Matt's first impression of Jordan to be that you guys were having a blow up, you know? So I wouldn't run to him to tell him that. I also think sometimes you have to assess, are you telling your partner because it's gossip, or are you telling your partner because you need somebody to kind of have a bit of a back and forth with about the situation and how to best support your friend?
Okay, so in my head, when I thought about this, if I tell you, Laura, if I tell you something and I say don't tell anyone, in my head, I pretty much mean don't tell anyone, but obviously you can tell Matt. Like in my head, I feel like when I say don't tell anyone, Matt's excluded. And I feel like that's in a lot of couples. I think there are a lot of couples that in a relationship, you have someone to be a bit of a sounding board. And maybe you, at the end of the day, want to go to your partner and you want to unpack your day. And maybe the friend, me in this sense, maybe what I have come to you with is a real problem that you don't know what to do with me. You don't know how to act with me, or you don't know how to help me. So maybe as a sounding board, you go to Matt and you're like, look, don't say anything. And you know he wouldn't. This is what's happening with Britt. I don't really know what to do. I think it's almost expected in relationships, because there is this thing with relationships where, I don't know, it's almost like an unspoken thing that you do tell each other everything. But I agree. If you ever said to me, please don't tell Jordan, please don't tell anyone, I absolutely would not. Like there has to be a level of respect in your friendship. But I think I was trying to think of all my couple friends and everyone I know, and almost all of them I think would tell their partners just about everything, knowing that it then stays in the relationship. I think a lot of couples are sort of almost seen as an entity sometimes instead of two individuals. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I unpack a lot with Jordan and I tell him a lot about what's going on in my life and in other people in my life. But again, if you came to me and said you'd had a miscarriage or you had a huge fight with Matt and you didn't know what to do, if you said to me, this is like a huge secret and I don't want anyone to know, I would take it to the grave. It is what it is. You have to have respect for your friendships. But I think when you go to a friend and you say, don't tell anyone, if you don't want them to tell their partner, you need to be specific. You need to say, don't tell anyone, including your partner.
I guess one of the things that's probably a bit unfair, and I mean, like life is unfair, but if you're in a relationship, as someone who's a couple, you then get the opportunity of having a sounding board with someone else. Like you don't really have to keep a secret because you get to have that opportunity to be able to just like, get that off your chest and tell someone. And like, let's be real, like Matt only listens to 50% of what I say anyway, so he's going to forget anyway. But when you're a single person and your friend says to you, don't tell anyone, you don't get that same ability to have that sounding board. You don't get the same, release for choice of a better word to like, flesh out somebody else's problems with. And I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair that like one friend who just because they're in a couple gets the ability to go and share that with somebody else, because it puts a higher level of responsibility on someone when they're single, that everything that's said to them, they have to keep completely private and completely to themselves. Like, I think it's unfair that we have two separate sets of rules for our friends. Even though you say that you tell me things knowing that I would tell Matt, there are definitely things that I do not tell Matt. And it's not because I need to keep secrets from him, but it's because I want to protect your privacy.
I love that this is like down to that, you and I. Do we tell each other our secrets?
It's just us, yeah. But also like I respect our friendship. And sometimes if what's happening to you doesn't directly affect me, like it's your personal secret, then I don't need to go and flesh that out with him. You know, he doesn't need to know that information. And all that does is shows a lack of respect to you.
I agree. But I think it depends a lot on the partner too. So if you know your partner is a big gossip, you know they are not going to keep the secret, then you probably need to be a bit more respectful and not share as much. For me, if I share something with Jordan, I've never met anyone in my life that is more of a vault than Jordan. Like that will not ever leave his lips again. If I knew he was a gossip, I wouldn't tell him as much because he would just go and tell everyone else on the tennis tour and they would tell everyone else. And I think you have to be pretty honest with yourself at what your relationship is like and what your partner is like with his loose lips.
I mean, let's be real. We're pretty difficult people to ask this question to because we just share everything on a podcast anyway. We have no secrets. You guys know everything about us. Maybe as a friend and as a friend who's in a relationship, we should make decisions of, am I telling my partner this and actually it's not really helpful, it's just gossiping? Am I telling my partner this because I really need someone to sound this information with? I think maybe we can all be a little bit more mindful and a bit more critical that like if our friend comes to us with something that is completely personal and private to them, there is no benefit in our partners knowing that information, then maybe exercising a bit of self-control because they don't need to know every single thing. Like, and I know that there's going to be some people out there who don't agree with me, but I do think that like your partner is not supposed to be every single thing to you. They don't have to be the person that you go to with every single piece of information or secret. They're not your religion. They're not your counselor. They don't have to play every partner relationship.
Yeah, I agree. When I say, I mean, I still do stand by this. When I say, when you tell your friends something, expect them to tell their partner, I still stand by that because I think a lot of people, if you don't specify, they'll probably will naturally just want to tell their partner and have a sounding board. So I stand by saying have that expectation. If you know you don't want the partner to know, I would just be a bit more specific. I wouldn't say don't tell anyone. I'd say please don't tell anyone. Don't even tell Matt. That's what I would say. I would just make it a bit more specific because I think in this world, people, especially in like a lockdown situation now with the world, you are in this tiny house all day with your partner. It's going to want to come out. I just feel like it's inevitable in this situation. So I would just be very specific if you want not a soul to know.
I don't think you've ever told me don't tell Matt. I don't think you've ever told me something and then been like, but don't tell Matt.
Yeah, because I'll be like, I'll just tell him myself or I'll put on the podcast.
All right, question number 3, hit me.
All right, question number 3 is fucking funny. We'll make this a quick one. During sex, do you girls close your eyes and imagine your fantasy to climax? Sometimes it's a fantasy of you and the guy you are having sex with. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's someone completely random. Sometimes it's him and a third party. The same way you would close your eyes and imagine when you are masturbating. But during intercourse with another person, is it A, normal to be completely thinking about someone else to climax? And B, is it normal to close your eyes when you climax?
Britt, I want to know the second part to this question. Do you shut your eyes when you orgasm? Or do you open your eyes and stare straight into Jordan's soul?
Do you know what? A bit of A, bit of B. I don't have one lane that I stick in. I think it's like how I'm feeling. And it depends on the position. Like if it's doggy, I don't like to look over my back. You don't glance over your shoulder.
Just imagining you in doggy, just like you're about to reach your orgasm and you're like, wait a second, reach round, lock eyes.
Can you imagine? Like, I feel like that's awkward. You know when a dog takes a shit and looks at you, it's so awkward. That's what I feel like.
Did you just compare your orgasms to a dog taking a shit?
That's what I imagine. Like, you know when a dog is doing a shit in a park and it like locks eyes with you and you're like, bro, why are you looking at me while you're pooing? That's what I felt like in this situation. Sometimes, like, I think it depends on the sex. Sometimes if it's like really nice and intimate, I think it's nice to lock eyes. I don't think you should be closing your eyes because you're embarrassed. Like, I hope no one's in a situation where they're uncomfortable or embarrassed or, you know, because everyone has a pretty fucking funny orgasm face. I'm not going to lie. Everyone has a face and a sound. And I think it's sexier to embrace that. I don't think you should shy away from it. But also, sometimes I can't be bothered. I just like turn my head to the side and close my eyes.
Eye contact is so sexy. I actually find like eye contact is what will get me to the next point.
You're the dog shitting in the park. Fuck, you're the shitting dog.
It was one time, Brittany, and he asked me to do it on his chest, okay?
Because everyone shits in the shower.
Everybody shit in the shower at least once. Okay, so I think For me, though, it is completely dependent on if I'm feeling myself. Like if I feel like I'm...
What, like if you're feeling sexy?
Yeah, like if I feel like I'm looking sexy and like, you know, feeling myself, literally, I have no problem with making eye contact. But if I think my hair looks like shit and I'm not really feeling particularly sexy and we're just having a quickie with the lights kind of off, no, I'm not like trying to make deep eye contact. But also I think everyone, and if you say you don't do this at all, I'm going to call bullshit. Okay, this is a little bit different to the shitting in the shower comment. If you have never had a fantasy or like imagined that you were having sex with someone else, from time to time you will imagine something else. It's just like what happens. You don't have full agency and control over your thoughts. Thoughts come in and they go out. And I think that like when people masturbate, they might fantasize about something else, and it's because variety is the spice of life in your mind. I'm not saying go out and find someone else.
I have not, since I've been with Jordan, I have not fantasized about anyone else, but you know, we're like 7-8 months, so that's probably why. But before that, I didn't have any meaningful relationships. When I was meeting people and sleeping with them, it was because it was casual thing. So, and it was always still new. I had no long-term relationship. So my mind never had to wander because I was always invested in my situation. So I feel like I can't compare that. I mean, I have sex dreams about other people for sure.
Totally. And when I say fantasize about someone else, I don't mean fantasize about someone else specifically. Like I'm not saying like you're thinking about having sex with the guy who makes your coffee. That's not what I'm saying.
He's cute though.
Yeah, I'm saying like imagining a slightly different scenario to what is physically happening in the bedroom. Do you know what I mean? I think that sometimes, especially as women, like we're very imaginative, and sex is like a whole encompassing thing. It's not just about the physical and what's happening in a tactile sense, but it's also about your mind being stimulated. So what I mean is like, you could be thinking about something that you've seen in porn. I don't mean that when you go to bed, you're thinking about fucking your friend at the same time. What I do think would be unhealthy is if every time you're going to bed with your partner that you're imagining someone else or something else. If you are having to use that escapism in order to get off, then that's probably when you might consider, are you just not really enjoying having sex with your partner? Because I don't think that that's the norm either.
Yeah, and her opening line was, during sex, do you girls close your eyes and imagine your fantasy to climax? Now, if your fantasy is, like she went on to say, if your fantasy is that you're having sex with your partner and someone else, like it's a threesome, I mean, girl, go crazy, live your truth, live your best authentic sex life. But also maybe if that's a fantasy, maybe that's something you could voice and bring up with your partner. Maybe that's something you guys could explore. But if your fantasy is every single day
Jason Momoa's just boning you up a wall.
If it's Sam Heughan from Outlander, you're a legend.
Also understandable.
No, but if you're constantly sleeping with your partner and you are imagining yourself somewhere else with someone else, then that is different. But absolutely, people use their fantasies all the time to climax. I don't think that's wrong. If you're constantly closing your eyes when you orgasm, I'm going to will you to the next time you orgasm, open your eyes, look each other in the eye and just see what happens, because I bet you'll have a better orgasm.
It's so fucking sexy. Like it's so much more like you're in the moment with your eyes open. So yes, I highly recommend that as well. Maybe we'll give it a go next time. It's been a while.
Well, that's it from us, guys. What a random assortment of questions we had today. But I love it like that. Guys, keep your questions coming in. You know to send them to the DMs on Instagram, Life Uncut Podcast. Make sure you put Ask Uncut at the top. And please, there is no limit to what you can ask us. The more weird and wonderful, the more we love that. So keep them sliding in.
I want some more random sexy questions, please. Like, I do care. Can you please ask me some really just out there weird ones? I'm ready for it.
Laura wants the dirty questions.
About a dog making eye contact while it shits, please. Something that we can make some more references to. For everybody who's written in questions, we love it. If you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, jump on. And you know the drill. If you haven't left a review on Apple, jump on there and do that for us as well. Subscribe and tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your friends, and tell everyone and share the love, because we love love.